The hardest question that anybody has to face, whether it's in love or in business, is do you hold on or do you let go? And this is exactly the case of our client for today, Lenovo, where its core business, PCs, are being disrupted by the entry of tablets and smartphones. And now it has to face the problem. How do I now hold on to my core product, which are PCs? Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're Team Ateneo de Manila University from the Philippines. I'm James, and with me are Sam, Karen, and Ed, and we're here to present the Lenovo black and white strategy to solve Lenovo's dilemma. But first, let's take a step back and talk about what exactly is the problem Lenovo is facing. First key issue, as we've said, is PC disruption. Suddenly, we've seen tablets and smartphones enter the market and people preferring to buy these products over PCs. Second is that Lenovo currently has a weak brand profile despite its heavy investments, not even ranking in the top 100 globally. And third, these two things has resulted in the low average operating margins as PC margins have both declined, and specifically for Lenovo, because it doesn't have a lot of brand equity, it also has declined. These three things can be summarized into one problem statement. How can Lenovo now position its product and brands to create better margins for the company? And so in order to answer this problem statement, we'll ask four more things. First, and this is our agenda for today, is first the market analysis, where we're going to ask really how did we get here in the first place. Second, strategy formulation in terms of where do we need to go now given our scenario. Third is a recommendation and implementation, where we'll discuss what do we need to get there and for the impact, and what will happen when we actually get to the black and white strategy. And so to start with, for the market analysis, let's go ahead.
Now, we're going to talk about why we're going to identify why we have come to this particular place and why our client company, which is Lenovo, is facing these key issues, which were mentioned earlier. So first, we take a look at the industry of smart connected devices. This particular industry has transitioned from becoming just a PC industry to now having four screens, or the four major products of this particular industry, namely PC, laptops, tablets, and phones. And in order to analyze this particular market, we actually opted to divide this market into this type of framework. So first, on the column side, you see the three different major products of this particular industry, namely PC and laptop, that's combined in that first column. We also have tablet and phones. And on the rows, you have the first-time buyers and the refresh buyers. The main difference is that the first-time buyers are those that are just entering this particular industry or just buying products for the first time from this particular industry. And the refresh customers are those that, for example, have bought PC in the first place and now trying to purchase, for example, tablets or phones. Now, as you can see here, the situation of the industry is that the PC and laptop segment is actually decreasing, or is actually experiencing negative growth of 4.1%. And the laptop is also experiencing the same trend at 3%, while the tablets and phones are actually increasing at 46% and 78% respectively in terms of the volumes being shipped. And why this particular trends are experienced by this industry or by this particular products, we see here that, for example, in the PC segment, the main driver of this negative growth would be the substitutions, wherein customers are now transitioning from having PC and laptops to buying tablets and phones in order to obtain information and access to the social media. But this particular trend is partially offset by a small growth in the rural China area and emerging economies, wherein PCs are being sold at this particular market segments primarily for the use of education and the like. Also, when you look at the tablet and phones, we're experiencing huge growth. This is primarily driven by refresh customers, wherein they're actually substituting their PC for tablets and phones. And customers include major consumers and also businesses. But as you can see here, there's an emerging segment, a small segment, which is the first-time buyers, wherein we actually identified that most consumers will first buy PC. But now there's an emerging trend wherein because customers who don't have any products from this particular industry are now buying tablets and phones first, even if they don't have PC or laptop to begin with. So that's the situation in the industry, and we see that the tablets and phones are growing at the expense of the PC and laptop segment. Now we talk about the competition, wherein we see that this particular smart connected devices industry is primarily dominated by two major competitors, namely Apple and Samsung. The primary similarity between these two brands is that they focus on consumers selling their phones, their gadgets to end consumers, or like youth and people who actually use these devices in order to obtain information and get connected in the social media. They also value innovation because they also release a lot of products and update their technology in this fast changing industry. But the primary difference between the two is that Apple is focused on a niche market wherein they actually value on the brand of Apple, or they build on the brand of Apple and they sell on different products in order to build an ecosystem that will entice customers to remain with Apple for a long time. While Samsung is focusing more on the mass affluent brand because their products are primarily priced at a lower rate than Apple. And so they're actually transitioning to become a mass affluent brand because now they have the Galaxy series and the like. So as we can see here, we see that there's no big competitor targeting the business segment and also the emerging PC segment, which is the rural China and the emerging economies. Now, before we develop the strategy needed or to be used by Lenovo in order to move forward in this particular industry, we first look at the internal strengths and weaknesses of the company. And for that, here's Karen.
So as we take a look at what types of strengths of Lenovo we can capitalize to further improve the company, we see that first and foremost, it has a strong foothold in China, meaning it is due to the government support because it actually asks for Lenovo's PCs for its educational programs and whatnot. And aside from this, they also understand the Chinese market, which has enabled it to be able to cater to the needs as well as what the China market wants. But more than this, if we can see the trend of China, 47% is actually the growth of PC industries, but Lenovo is able to overtake this by having 57% growth. And if we look into the next strength, we see that they actually have a very efficient manufacturing and distribution systems. In terms of their operations, they actually have very low operating costs because they are able to make it efficient and they have low inventory turnover. And more than this, we actually see that their costs in terms of storing their inventory as well as in terms of their supply costs, they're able to keep it at a minimum because they make sure that they're very efficient. But to be able to add to this further, they make sure that their stocks are able to reach the market that they want, meaning they have very efficient distribution systems, not just within China, but also in terms of the other parts of the world. Because in terms of China, they do distribute it to retail stores and provinces through their approaches such as educating the kids to be able to use their markets so that they will learn to understand to use their products. But in terms of their market abroad, they make sure that they have efficient distribution channels so that they will be able to effectively reach the different types of markets who may have different preferences in terms of how they want to be communicated with, in terms of maybe what they want in terms of a product. These distribution channels are able to understand how they can effectively distribute it to the products, to the markets. But lastly, we see that they have a strong global management. We see that their leaders are actually distributed through different operating channels so that once in a month they can meet and they can discuss the issues, which in the future they would be able to use as a strategy so that they will be able to effectively create a global brand. As we can see now in terms of the weaknesses, despite the efforts of Lenovo to decrease their costs as well as to increase their marketing, they are not able to penetrate the market as much. As we can see, only 10% of their sales are from non-PCs, despite their efforts of marketing to increase the sales, and 90% remain to be within the PC section. And second, we see that as a result of this low brand equity, they actually have very weak sales in terms of their smart devices, even if the actual goal of MDHI is to be able to increase the sales of their non-PC devices. And lastly, the result of all these is that they have low operating margins. Even if they have efficient distribution and operating systems, because they have weak sales and revenues in the first place, they are not able to maximize their profitability because they are not able to control the prices in the first place, since they are not leaders in terms of controlling the market and controlling the prices. So we take into account all these strengths and weaknesses. So what can Lenovo be able to do so that they can be able to maximize the opportunities and grow a global market? Here we have Sam.
So strategy for Lenovo moving forward, we first really wanted to go back to the main question. How is it do we become a global brand with Lenovo in the growing smart devices market, especially considering the various competitive advantages or strengths Lenovo has today? And we went through this process by looking at three main things. What market do we cater to? How do we do the branding for Lenovo moving forward? And what extra capabilities will we need in order to fully implement this strategy? In the market, a while ago in our audit, we already showed you how we segmented the market, and we're really looking for what Lenovo can serve best, which segments are growing, as well as market white spaces that perhaps Apple and Samsung haven't quite touched upon yet. And in terms of branding, once we choose the market that we want to have a more focused strategy in order to appeal to these various segments that we've identified. And in terms of capabilities, we believe that choosing the different segments, especially in the technology market, will determine what sort of acquisitions they'll have moving forward. So let's take a look again at the market segment framework that we had. So if you look at it, Lenovo's current market is really focused on the PC segment, which you can see from that red vertical box. And market opportunity right now really is in tablets and phones. So people aren't buying laptops as much, but are enjoying the use of a lot of smart devices. And in terms of these consumers, there are really a lot in terms of consumers who just want to use it for their lifestyle, so their daily, as well as people who use them for professional purposes. And when we look at shared spaces between the segments that we feel that Lenovo is currently strong in and there is market opportunity, we feel that moving forward, we want to take a look at two main things. The first, which is really first-time buyers. So as a while ago we mentioned emerging economies, and a lot of them are just first buying their very first laptop. So we really want to look at that. But at the same time, we also want to leverage or get into that mobile and tablet market, which we believe can be joined with if we take a closer look at the corporate segment. Now, if we think about it, Lenovo recently acquired IBM, and IBM's ThinkPad is actually a large vehicle for corporate laptops and corporate technologies. So focusing on that and combining that with mobile, we believe that we'll be able to show a good platform. So let's take a look at these shared segments. So in terms of them, the shared customer for the very first one we've identified will be the first-time users in emerging economies. And what we're looking to present as a product is really functional and reliable PCs and notebooks for reasonable prices that they can really easily buy in their countries. Second, in terms for the refresh, we want to create an ecosystem of the 4-screen technologies. So this will have smart device network users and the business and corporate consumer, which leverages really on our current ThinkPad network. So this will really include all sorts of devices catering to business and professional needs. And in terms of branding, we really wanted to see if in terms of these two segments, they will actually have the same message in terms of branding and what they can contribute to the Lenovo brand. I think we believe that because the Lenovo brand's current marketing is a bit focused on really just their PCs, they don't really take the consumer in mind. And we believe that moving forward, they can keep the Lenovo name because the Lenovo name stands for functionality, reliability, and multiple things that really have a good PC brand as a foundation. But we also want to create sub-brands for them, catering to the different consumer segments that we want to enter into. So firstly, we want to show that we're best in functionality for the PCs, especially for the emerging economies. And secondly, another sub-brand will be in terms of best in professionalism. And later, we'll introduce to you what brands these are, which we hope you can get the hint of from our market strategy's name. And lastly, in terms of entering the mobile and tablet market, we feel that we need help, and that will be through a strategic acquisition. And in terms of mobile, really, the case really mentions two main mobile businesses, which is Nokia and BlackBerry. And we feel like, especially in terms of targeting the corporate market, a combination of ThinkPad, Lenovo, and BlackBerry is the best step for Lenovo moving forward in capturing this professional consumer. So now, James will talk to you about what these two brands we're planning on launching are, and what our plans are moving forward.
So the black and white strategy is a two-brand strategy to leverage on getting the first-time buyers to buy PCs, but also getting the refresh market to actually buy tablets and smartphones together with our existing portfolio of corporate products. So for the Lenovo White, what we're targeting is, since we're now going at a global brand, is we're dividing it between what kinds of customers. So these are the first-time buyers and the entrepreneurs. And what we're delivering for them is a product, a PCs that deliver best function at the best value, which we can price 15% cheaper than competitors because of our effective supply chain and our effective manufacturing. So this is really a volume play to increase the volume and cut down our costs. And we're going to leverage our current distribution network, whether it's IT mall stores or hypermarkets, wherever these first-time buyers actually get their PCs. And how we're going to brand it, the promotion, is really focus on giving them offers where we create an urgency for them to buy their PCs now. But secondly, telling them that the power of a PC to do wonderful things, whether it's connecting with your loved ones through Skype or starting a business, you need a PC as an integral part of achieving those dreams. The second part is the Lenovo Black strategy, which is really targeted at corporate accounts and professionals who are really looking for something to complete their ecosystem from their work, whether it's work or at home. The product we're giving them is a security that's enabled by RIM's technology, which is really known for its security, its corporate security, and also a 4-screen ecosystem which goes from both PC, tablet, and smartphone. That's really customizable for their work and lifestyle. So Lenovo Black can actually offer that to them. The price, because of this integrated ecosystem, we're targeting a 20% premium higher than competitors by really packaging all these things together. We're going to target corporate accounts and launch concept stores similar to iStore to really launch that out and focus, rather than just focusing on the value, we think an effective way to get endorsements is really focusing on endorsements from CEOs like Marissa Mayer or Donald Trump to get people to buy these lifestyles, and really focusing on exceeding your goals with this entire Lenovo Black ecosystem. So how will these things pan out in terms of timeline? We expect PCs to be launched right away, our Lenovo White PCs, or our Black system. We're going to acquire RIM and develop these products under that ecosystem, which will take a year to turn around and launch by year 2 forward. And if tablets and phones continue to grow later, we think that's an opportunity we can explore after 3 years. But how will this timeline turn into impact? Here's Ed.
For our financial impact, we actually took into consideration these key assumptions. So first, in terms of the revenue contribution, currently 90% of the revenues come from the PC business, and we plan to bring that down to 70% in 3 years, and 30% now coming from the non-PC segment, namely tablets and smartphones. In terms of growth rates, we projected that PC revenues of Lenovo will grow by 6%, which outperforms the market, which is now growing at -4%. We used this particular growth rate because historically, Lenovo actually performed 10% better in terms of its market growth, and so we actually used that as a benchmark in order to obtain the 6% growth in terms of PC segment. Now, in terms of profit margins, as I mentioned earlier, we're actually going to sell the PC into the first-time buyers, which will have lower margins in terms of profits, and now the non-PC will bring the profitability up at a 25% margin. How will this translate to financial impact? The revenue will be having $35 billion in the first year, growing to $45 billion by the third year, wherein the net income now will become 4.53 or 10% profit margin. The total impact of our black and white strategy can be tied back to the key issues which were mentioned earlier. And for the impact analysis, first, we see that 6% PC sales growth and 70-30% mix between PCs and tablet phones, which were mentioned earlier in the financial impact segment. Now we have a 20% brand premium because we're now selling Lenovo Black, or marketing Lenovo Black, which will target corporate consumers, and a higher operating margin. Clearly, the black and white strategy will become a clear 2-segment positioning of brand and products of Lenovo. And for that, we thank you for listening, and we're now ready for your questions.
Just while you're on black for a second, do you see the interaction between lifestyle and corporate becoming more blurred in that analysis? I.e., do you have the same devices that you use for work that you use in your own personal time?
Okay, so well, there's still a distinction between work and lifestyle, but I think what's the current trend that's happening in the market is sometimes, especially if you're a professional, especially if you're working in a corporate setting, sometimes there are emergencies that really require you to contact someone, whether it's after your 5 p.m. day. So what we're offering is, well, one, you have really from the Lenovo like the best in terms of function to be able to do your lifestyle. But secondly, what you get from the RIM partnership, the BlackBerry partnership, that's why it's called Lenovo Black, is that whenever you need, there's an emergency or whenever you need something secure, that's where we also come in. So realizing that a lot of jobs just aren't 9-to-5 jobs that require you to be on the PC after you're on the PC until 5, but sometimes you're needed after the working day, and that's where we come in to give that entire ecosystem, which is something that BlackBerry already did before when it comes to giving personal phones that they give to their corporate accounts.
I have a question also about Lenovo Black. For some reason, that's quite popular with us. I wanted to ask you about your geographical focus. You talked about corporate accounts. Where do you plan to start?
So for a lot of geographic focus, the reason why while we're saying the refresh market, so these are a lot of it might be in more highly developed countries, but we also see like developing cities, for example, like Shanghai, which might be in China, which might be a developing market, but that same customer segment is still existing. So what we're really looking at isn't so much in terms of countries, more as urban cities where we see a lot of these corporate accounts that are promising, whether it's New York, Shanghai, and Singapore, a lot of the global financial centers of the world.
I have another question, very much around manufacturing. Apple has come under a lot of attack in recent time for the treatment or the alleged treatment of workers in the factories that produce its products. You're talking about selling something 15% cheaper, which I assume means you're going to manufacture it for less or have even smaller margins. Okay? I'm making the assumption that you're going to reduce your cost further. How are you going to do that without having, without exploitation of people? The costs of manufacturing are increasingly astronomically in mainland China. Talk to me about how you would do that from a manufacturing perspective.
So I guess from a manufacturing perspective, one of the competitive advantages that was actually mentioned in the case is that Lenovo operates in a large volume and produces products in a large volume. So they also procured raw materials from their suppliers at large volume. So what we want to do is that since now they're actually producing at a lower cost actually, so we're going to capitalize on that. And the second thing is we're actually extending the brand from being just the PC and then the Lenovo Black, which will be a premium priced brand. So in terms of achieving a profitable margin, we're actually expecting that the Lenovo Black will be able to pull up the margin even if we're actually selling the Lenovo White products at a lower price.
In that consideration, do you factor paying BlackBerry for their branding as well? Because your uplift might not necessarily go into your own P&L. And how do you apportion the revenue sharing between BlackBerry and yourselves?
We actually envision given RIM state, we actually envision 100% acquisition to be viable. So we're really buying everything from branding to the technology that we need for our servers. So we're using, and that works towards the cloud system, and also using the BlackBerry, which we modified to Lenovo Black. So we don't think profit sharing is going to be a concern.
So it's an acquisition?
It's an acquisition.
And just on the supply chain, you mentioned that obviously they have a very efficient supply chain in China. You also mentioned that they're going to be, you're envisaging expanding into the emerging markets. How does the supply chain dynamic change vis-a-vis being domestically focused in China to then expanding into the emerging markets? And how do you replicate that supply chain if needed?
Again, one of the competitive advantages of Lenovo again is that their production facilities are actually scattered all around the globe. So besides China, they also have the production facilities in Latin America, especially in Brazil, and those similar times, which actually allows them to offset or to avoid or to prevent any damages, especially if, for example, a calamity strikes China. So they can still produce because they have facilities in Brazil. So in terms of how it will change, since we're now targeting emerging economies, they actually have a very efficient and effective distribution channel throughout the globe because they have different facilities around the globe, and they also have different distribution centers around the globe. So we're just going to capitalize on that particular network that they currently have.
Additionally, I think that Lenovo has a global management, so they really have networks in various countries, and they already have established distribution networks, as Ed said. So that will really help out in rolling out their products to various countries.
I'm interested in the relationship between the white and the black, because it seems that you're targeting almost kind of the two extremes ends of the market, the brand new first-time users who want something very cheap, and the premium corporate users who want the customized bespoke package, but not targeting anything in the middle. So I'm interested in how you see that would work from a branding point of view when the high-end customers wouldn't want to be associated with a product that's cheap, and the cheap customers wouldn't want the high-end. How would you pitch the branding so that you somehow manage to appeal to both extremes, but not the middle?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and the way we really handle that, given the two scenarios, is what we're going to focus on is while you have Lenovo, the way we can, in terms of implementation, in terms of separating our messaging, is really focusing on the black and white. So it could be as simple as having an entirely different logo for black, and white could put Chinese characters on using white, so it appeals to a specific local market. And even as in terms of products coming up with a different look, where all of your lines are black for Lenovo black and white for your vanilla flavored, your basic PCs. So these two things in terms of really, there are ways to really separate in terms of implementation, whether it's product or your marketing. So you can still have that two divisions between black and white. But given that the goal of Lenovo is to be #1 in terms of global brand, we thought it was necessary that you still have the umbrella of Lenovo branding as integral to what the management wants in the next few years.
Your Lenovo White, you're targeting first-time buyers. I would have thought first-time buyers, if you looked around the world and you added all first-time buyers, that would be a massive number of people. Where do you start?
Well, I think they can leverage, they can use the defense and attack strategy in a way here. Protect and attack strategy in a way here. They can begin with rural China and work on to like emerging economies in Asia and leverage all their networks in areas that are, can be classified as emerging economies. I mean, they recently built a manufacturing facility in Brazil, so they could also reach South America as well.
We think that China would be a good place to start, given Lenovo still has pretty strong presence there. So just imagine the rural China, maybe that's around 500 million consumers that are just waiting for us to reach them.
Just on your growth rate number, 6%. You mentioned that obviously markets are falling, you acknowledge that, but they tend to outperform historically. If the market's falling and your growth rate is 6, that means your market share is going to increase substantially. Do you think that's feasible?
Yes, I guess what we see here, as we've mentioned in the market audit or market analysis, the PC segment now is actually moving from the refresher side to the first-time buyers or the rural China, who are actually becoming the largest or the growth driver in this particular industry. And as of today, in their protect and attack strategy, they actually have that particular plan to target this particular segment, especially in rural China. And we see that as a big segment, and no other competitor is doing that yet. And so ultimately, that will translate to higher market share.
And I think just to add, we're not actually asking them to switch brands. So brand preference doesn't matter here. We're asking them to buy their first PC. So it's really adding the pie. So we think it's manageable because we're not stealing market share directly from anyone. We're just growing the market at a faster rate because of the first-time buyers.
And what can help here is that, for example, as we saw in China, they did have the government support of using these Lenovo PCs for the educational programs. So if we are able to target that particular agenda of the government in other countries to give educational programs in using computers, then we believe that it will actually be a big market.
What do you see as the key risks of your strategy?
I think the key risk, again, would go back to the brand part, as you actually pointed out a while ago, would be, can you really separate black and white as two separate brands? So I think that's the key risk that we have to look at. And going forward, I think what management needs to decide is whether the #1 global brand is something they really want to pursue in the long term, or should they just look at the most number of PC sales and adopt a different brand entirely for these two different products. So that's something that's the biggest risk and something the management will need to look at in terms of their long-term strategy.
We still have some time to have something else to ask the team to clarify. No? Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, Ateneo, Manila.